Is histrionic personality disorder real? Well, that really depends.
In my head.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Liberty. I'm back in the woods again, and if you've watched the past few videos I've done, you probably know where this one's going, but we're going to talk today about whether or not histrionic personality disorder is real. You know, this is the personality disorder that I knew the least about when I first started making videos, and I questioned myself, like, is this even a real thing? Because it doesn't seem to be very well defined, so let's talk about that. Now first, I like to start off by saying that the symptoms of histrionic personality disorder are real. So if you're somebody who has this, who's been diagnosed with this, I am not doubting that you experience what you experience. However, I'm not so sure that this label is the correct label to be using for what you may be experiencing, and that's what I want to talk about. So when it comes to diagnosing personality disorders, we use the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and we're on version 5, and when they made version 5, they decided to put together a task force to try to see what's going on with these personality disorders, because when they first came up with personality disorders in the DSM-3, they were very rigid and categorized, and it seemed to put people into boxes, and a lot of people didn't feel right about the way that we classify these things. So the task force was set out to try to figure out what exactly is going on here. What are we talking about when we're talking about personalities? So this task force went out and they created an alternative method for diagnosing personality disorders, and unfortunately that did not become the official method for a number of different reasons. People had some reservations about it, but I think that's the direction that we're heading in, and that's personally the way that I like to conceptualize personality disorders. You can actually find this in the back of the DSM-5, and you can use it to diagnose somebody today. Now, under this alternative model, instead of looking at personalities as people put into categories, we look specifically at people's personality traits, and there's 25 maladaptive personality traits. And what you need to know when it comes to histrionic personality disorder is that it doesn't exist under this new model. So where do all the people go who were called histrionic? That's kind of a big deal. Well, histrionic personality disorder is typically characterized by excessive attention seeking, dressing like flamboyantly maybe, or sexualized, and basically just trying to grab attention from people, and that would line up with the personality trait of attention seeking, which is a core characteristic of narcissistic personality disorder under this new model. Also under narcissistic personality disorder is grandiosity. So those two personality traits make narcissistic personality disorder, and it's possible that people who are diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder in this new classification would just be considered narcissistic because of that attention seeking. I know there's a lot of negative things that get attributed to narcissistic personality disorder. They're very stereotyped, and I just want you to know that that's not necessarily the way that you should view yourself if you have that label, but that's one possibility. There's other possibilities for what we would call histrionic personality disorder. Something else that people with histrionic personality disorder display is what they call exaggerated emotionality. Basically, these flamboyant ways of expressing their emotions. Now, what this could be in terms of personality traits is emotional lability, and we find emotional lability in borderline personality disorder. Now, borderline personality disorder has a whole bunch of personality traits. I'm going to see if I can remember them all here. We have anxiousness, depressivity, emotional lability, impulsiveness, risk-taking, hostility, separation, and security. I think that's all of them. Now that may sound like a lot, but it's not something to really worry too much about, because all of these personality traits can change, they can vary from day to day. It's when they become a pattern and we have trouble moving on from these personality traits that we wind up having a personality disorder. And so borderline may fit if you find that you're somebody who's very emotional, who has a hard time keeping it together, staying grounded, and maybe the attention seeking is not because of a narcissistic, like always needing somebody's attention. It could be a separation insecurity, that you're worried someone's going to leave you and you're going to ruin some kind of a relationship. Now, I also was reading that there may be a link from histrionic personality disorder to antisocial personality disorder, and the traits I think that might make a difference there could be risk-taking, which kind of lends itself to getting attention from people, and also manipulativeness, because a lot of that sexiness and that trying to get attention is manipulative. So there's a lot of different ways that histrionic personality disorder could have swerved into this new model, because the people didn't disappear who had it. Just because the category histrionic personality disorder isn't there anymore doesn't mean that the people go away. What I like about this new model is that we look at personality traits now, and personality traits can be changed, they're flexible, and it shows people more as a human being and not so much as a category. Something else new to this model model is looking at people on different levels of severity of a personality disorder. So you can have these traits that are expressing stronger and harder in some people, and in some people it may be a little bit more mild. There's also mention of different insight levels people can have to their personality disorder. So some people may be very aware that they have histrionic personality disorder, although in this case it would be narcissistic, borderline, antisocial. And other people may be totally clueless to it and not think that there's anything necessarily off about them. Ultimately, I think having a more clear classification of personality disorder allows us to treat people better, because the way that you treat narcissistic personality disorder is very different from the way that you treat borderline personality disorder, is very different from the way you treat antisocial personality disorder, even though very often they can look the same because these personality traits overlap. Is histrionic personality disorder real? Well, that really depends. It depends on whether you're looking at the DSM-5, the DSM-5 alternative model for diagnosing personality disorders, or even looking further into the future at where we're headed. The field of psychology is still young and we are still learning. If you'd like to learn more about mental health, I have over 250 videos here. You can click subscribe and hit the bell after you hit subscribe to get notified each time I do a video. My mission is to humanize mental health. If you want to help support me in that mission, you can do so over on Patreon. And now I'd love to hear from you. If you have histrionic personality disorder, does this sound like a good way to move things? Do you think we should get rid of the label and change it to something more specific like narcissistic, borderline, or antisocial? Does this not feel right to you? Let me know in the comments down below so we can all learn from each other and share our opinions there. As always, I'd like to thank you for joining me here, and I'll see you around next time, everyone.